In the past 10 years, I've spent over $200,000 on grass seed, but I've taken that $200,000 of product and I've turned it into over $1 million in seeding services. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 3 grass seed phases my business has gone through. The first being the side gig, the niching in, and the third being the scalable business. And my goal for this video is to show you every step of the way how you can implement seeding services into your business to start to generate a full income from it. Let's get into it. All right, so we got phase 1. The side hustle. This is the kind of opportunity that you're going to be pursuing after your full-time job or after school, so evenings and weekends. And your goal would probably be to make something along the lines of $30,000. So let me rewind 10 years ago to how we started in this phase. It was myself and my business partner, Liam. I've known the guy since kindergarten, and we had just finished our first year of university. I did business, he did engineering, and we came together to work together for the summer. Now, we weren't always Yard Dawgs Lawn Care. It was actually JL Lawn Care. We got the name, we got the logo, and we thought we were just gonna be printing the millions, and that absolutely did not happen. So in fact, on the 4th day of doing services, we're finishing up an aeration on someone's house, and they say to us, by the way, James, thank you so much for the work you're doing. And I say, no problem, ma'am, thank you for hiring us. And she says, no, but thank you, you're doing such good work. And I say, you're welcome, thank you for paying us. But she was being so persistent. She was like, you know what, James, good for you. You obviously had a very hard start in life, but you've really taken the bull by the horns and made the most out of it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, JL Lawn Care, jail. You guys are ex-convicts, right? From jail? I'm like, oh my gosh, if she thinks that, everybody probably thinks that. So lo and behold, after really mulling over names, we decided on Yard Dawgs. Liam, his mom, me at the kitchen table, spitballing names. Somebody said yard, somebody said dogs, and Yard Dawgs, Yard Dawgs. That was the name we were going to use. Now, we didn't start with a yard truck either, a big lawn care truck. In fact, my first advice for phase 1 is use what you've got. You want the best vehicle to use is the one that you already have. And in our case, it was a 1995 Toyota Previa. If you've never seen one of these before, go to Google Images right now and look up red 1995 Toyota Previa. We had the one with the leather front on it, kind of looked like a bra. That was our truck. We were driving junkyard, essentially. And that's how we started, and that's the way I recommend you start. Use what you've got. Now, what's cool about aerators is that you actually don't need, it's a very heavy machine, it's 300 pounds. You don't need to be a guy that can lift that into a truck. You can find some very awesome aerator carriers, usually at your local auto store like Princess Auto. We use a company from the States called Aeration, but they have these awesome carriers that can carry your aerator and have a ramp go down to the curb, and I totally recommend that. It goes into most hitches to make this job a lot easier. This right here is an aerator carrier, and this is what we use to get that aerator safely from point A to point B with only one crew member. But the phase 1 of the side hustle, your first $30,000, this is going to be a combination of mechanical aeration, and you're going to add an upsell to this, so plus overseeding. The reason this is the core offer and this is an upsell is because it's okay for you to do a mechanical aeration without seeding services, but I don't recommend just doing overseeding without the aeration. The reason is, and we learned this the hard way, is that unless seed is actually embedded in the soil, it has a terribly hard time germinating. It needs to be embedded in soil for it to actually grow and take nutrients and have a foundation there. Throwing seed over a lawn is going to attract rodents, birds, and more than anything, it's just going to be seed that lays there and never grows. So we don't want to be, scamming people, committing fraud. If we're going to do seeding services, make sure it's legit. And we do this through doing the mechanical aeration first, because that is going to plug holes into the ground. Now, prices have changed a lot. When we were back in 2014, we were charging anywhere, honestly, between 40 and 60 bucks. So let's just say 50 bucks for a mechanical aeration. And overseeding, honestly, we were buying the cheap shit, the cheap stuff from Walmart, and just I can't even remember how cheap it was, but we were doing it for anywhere between $29 up to $50 for the actual seeding services. Now, today it's 2024. I don't think you should do aeration seeding for any less than 150 bucks. Ideally, $125 for the aeration and $75 for the seeding services for lawns up to 3,000 square feet. It's getting kind of messy on this board, so now let's do a quick aeration. There goes my entire editing budget. There's gonna be no more edits for the rest of this video. But For seeding, not all seed is equal. You can have the cheap seed that you can buy at Walmart, probably like 10 bucks. But honestly, what we do now, and that if you want to do a good quality service, you really should be putting down about 5 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet. Now this can get expensive, especially if you're buying a high quality seed, a coated grass seed. You know, you want to have a good combination. You know your seeding area. If you're cool seeds and grass, know your blend of Kentucky bluegrass, red fescue, and rye, obviously. But this usually we get for $200 for a 50-pound bag. So let's do an example here. If we aerate a 2,000 square foot lawn, that's going to require 10 pounds of grass seed, because 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet times that by 2, that's going to need 10 pounds of seed. And we can see here that it's $200 for 50 pounds, which means that it's going to be, if you do 200 divided by 50, it's $4 per pound. So this ultimately means that it is going to be $4 times 10 pounds equals $40 of seed. Remember, this is if you're applying it at a good rate and using a high quality seed, which I think you should do. If you're going to give someone a service, give them the best quality service and charge for it. So I think for the seeding service alone, you should really charge anywhere between 75 and 80 bucks for this. It's only gonna take you about 4 minutes to do an overseed over the whole lawn. And you pair that with an aeration, which I'd probably recommend charging anywhere between $99 and $125 for a 2,000 square foot lawn. But this whole pair process, the aeration and the seeding, should take you 15 minutes. You might say, James, that's crazy. That's a 300-pound machine. I can't get that lawn done in 15 minutes. Yes, you can. We have done it here. It's all about getting route density happening. If you have a good carrier rack where your aerator come down, you have a Honda engine on that bad boy, and you know how to rip those aerations and you practice, you can get that aerator back on the mount, get that fertilizer spreader down, spread the seed everywhere, get that guy locked in, good to go, do a quick blow off, 15 minutes, and you can do 15 of these a day. In fact, the best technician ever here did about 25 of them in one day. Now that guy's a tank. I wouldn't recommend that. And I'll be honest, after you do 10, it's pretty tiring. 12 is ideal, but 15 is totally possible as you get more fit. Now, obviously you're gonna do this one lawn at a time. You might only be able to do 4 your first day, and that's totally fine. But I want you to really aspire to do an aeration and seed job every 15 minutes. Because look right away, if you're able to do 15 of these a day, let's just look up here quick. 15 jobs at 200 bucks, this equals a $3,000 day. All you need to do this is 10 days. 10 days of this kind of work is going to get you that $30,000, and you can totally get that done after work or on the weekends. Now, what's cool about lawn aerations is that it can be wet outside. It shouldn't be pouring rain, but it can be damp. It can be sprinkling, and those actually make very solid aeration plugs, and obviously the water's very good for seed. But the pros of this, it's easy to do. It's decently cheap. An aerator would be about $3 grand used or $5 grand new, and the seed, well, you can kind of pick what kind of quality seed you're going to do. But there's some cons, and the bottleneck of this is that doing an aeration and seed, yeah, overall it can help a lawn grow, but it's not going to address people's concerns, because most people, when they're calling you, it's not because they want their lawn to be thicker, it's because they have specific bare patches. And to fix very specific areas, that's where we're going to lead into phase 2. Man, there goes my editing budget again. But by the way, if you're looking for help with your lawn care business right now, or you're thinking about starting it, I'm gonna put a link in the description below to actually get a 1-hour call with me. Here at Yard Dawgs Lawn Care, we do over $2.1 million in revenue, and I've helped a ton of people get their business started or answer very specific questions they have. 100% of the proceeds from these 1-hour calls goes right back into our channel so that we can keep giving you great content. There's a lot of things I wanna do. It's very expensive to run this channel, and I do appreciate your support to get that done. So if you need help, make sure you book a slot below and we'll give that to you. But now let's get on with the video here. So phase 2 is called niching in. We want to start to solve very specific problems. And when it comes to seeding, one of the most common ones you're going to come across are bare patches. So I recommend, if you're going to go into bare patches, you probably should be focusing a little bit more full time on this side of things. This is a very seasonal thing. There's only about 2 months to make this happen, but this is a great service to implement if you're already doing lawn care services. If you're already running a mowing business full time in the summer, you're starting to dabble in fertilizer and weed control, bare patch repair is a very, very profitable upsell, but there are some cons with it as well. So this literally means just going to places and applying seed and soil. Now, we were doing aerations and overseeding services, but this wasn't addressing the actual bare patches. So what we did is that we were aerating these spots like heck, and then doing an upsell where we'd put down soil and seed in these areas, just literally get down on our hands and knees, make sure we're applying the soil with the seed, really embedding it within there so that there's maximum soil to seed contact. Now, this is very variable when it comes to pricing. It's going to cost anywhere between minimum $200, do not do cheaper than $200, because it's expensive to get this soil to people's houses. It's dirty work. It takes a lot of time, and seed, obviously, if you're using the high quality stuff, it's going to get very expensive. But these kind of services easily can run anywhere between $200 to usually about in the high hundreds. I'm gonna say about $800. Once it starts to get more expensive than that, people usually justify resodding areas. But as long as you can show someone that, hey, to resod your entire lawn, ma'am, is gonna cost over $4,000 to $5,000 after you factor in the removal, the dump fees, the new grading, and putting down the sod. I can get this whole area repatched up here, usually for about $800. Like, you have to figure out what your pound per square foot is gonna be, how many square feet you're going to do for the person. Make sure you know your pricing, because this can obviously kill you if you are going to underquote a job and then have to put down so much more seed than you thought. But guys, this is dirty work, and this is expensive because you need a way to haul this soil around, and usually that comes in the form of a trailer or literally putting bins in your truck. Salt bins, for example, something that's dry, waterproof, really good to carry soil. And then you can go to the landscape supply center where they have bulk products, get them to pour dirt in your truck, cover it, or in those bins, etc. That's great, but you need to have that kind of equipment to make that happen. Another way you can do it though is just by using bags. Bags are more expensive per pound of soil than getting it in bulk, but it is clean. You can literally go to the house, take the bag with you, drop it right where you want to do stuff, or you can start to really pour it in and put down this soil there too. So this is where you're really gonna start to niche down. I usually don't recommend someone does bare patches as a side gig because it's a short season. You gotta know what you're doing, and this is gonna be a lot less volume of jobs because the ticket price is usually a lot higher. Instead, niching is usually better for adding this as a service to your existing lawn care company. But here's the problem with this one. It's not very scalable. It is hard to always have soil going from one place to the next, and it gets really messy, and it's going to start to take away from your higher profit margin jobs, such as fertilizer and weed control. Very time consuming. It's great if you're a solopreneur doing your lawn care stuff, but the second you start to build a team and stuff, this isn't a very scalable option. But now let's talk about what we found to be our most scalable option. Now, this is the most scalable way that I found to implement seeding services at your company. And after $1 million in revenue, this is when we made that switch because it was getting too hard to do this whole aeration, seeding, soil stuff there too. So right away, we have two options. We have option A, which isn't as good, and I call this one seed bags. Quick disclaimer, people, in order to get this option, have to buy one of our lawn care programs. Our highest tier one, which is called the St. Bernard program, which is over $500, gives you season lawn fertilizer, unlimited weed control, a fall aeration, super juicing, mid-season seed kelp, and it used to be, for option A, a bag of our custom-made grass seed. It's a special seed that we formulated for our province, Alberta. For Yard Dawgs, they could scan the QR code and figure out exactly how to use seed their own lawn, but we're actually making people do it yourself, DIY. We're making people do it themselves. The reason for that is because when we're on the phone, it's incredibly hard to actually understand how much of their lawn requires this kind of TLC. So instead, we tell people, listen, we're gonna do all the heavy work for you, but I'm gonna give you the seed to actually put down in the areas that matter. This is a super high quality seed that we custom blended for our specific climate. In our case, there's a 40% red fescue, 30% Kentucky bluegrass, and 30% coated perennial ryegrass. This is all coated, by the way. And they would just go sprinkle down this area. And this worked super well, but there was one issue with it. It didn't take into account that you need to also put down soil, because remember, if the seed dries, it dies, and if the seed doesn't get embedded in the soil, it's going to spoil. So this is where option B is actually a lot better. And B stands for Bare Patch Pro. Again, you can only get Bare Patch Pro with our St. Bernard program, and here's what it looks like. bam, it's a ready for you jug that the client literally just needs to go to the areas of concern, open it up. It's a combination of seed, compost, and nutrients, and they can just go sprinkle it down generously in all the areas that they want filled. And the stuff's like crack cocaine. It grows like absolute crazy. It is super effective and very good for filling in those patches. Make sure you're using the right seed for your climate. Obviously, if you're going to be planting different seed than what the sod is, it's going to start to look weird. Make sure this is going to blend with the majority of lawns in your city. But this we found to be the most scalable way to implement seeding services in our season. Now, this is for people that are buying services in the spring, but believe it or not, we do all of our aerations and all of our slit seeding services in the fall. The reason for that, and by the way, when I first started to implement this, I was terrified to tell my customers we're no longer doing spring aerations. It's all going to move to the fall. I think I was shaking the first time I told someone on the phone. And what did everyone say when I told them? Okay, sounds good. I trust you guys. And it was a much smoother transition than I'd ever thought possible. Thing is, with doing it in the fall, two reasons. One is seed will actually grow better in the fall. You know, the cooler temperatures outside, but the warmer soil levels after a whole season, the germination rate of seed in the fall is much better than that in the spring, and it's also not competing with a lot of the weeds. Also though, we are way less busy in the fall. Spring, it's the spring rush. People are doing their cleanups. We want to get that first application of fertilizer and weed control down as soon as possible. Weed control and new grass seed does not mix well together, but by doing it in the fall, there's much less urgency to get it done. So the 3 phases. This is totally a way that we took our lawn care business from zero in that 1995 Toyota Previa and grew it into a fleet of over 17 trucks taking care of our beautiful city. So there you have it. We have phase 1, the side hustle. This is where you're going to be doing it in the evenings and the weekends, typically using a mechanical aerator and a spreader to do overseeding services. Really good to get going. Phase 2, though, is if you already have a lawn care business, you're doing mowing services, it is awesome to niche in on the lawn rejuvenation side of things. So you're doing specific patch repair for people. You can post specific ads for patch repair or do as an upsell to your existing clients. But if you really want to scale this puppy, you really got to start to implement a system that's going to help you get through that spring rush where people are asking for a lot of time and attention from your other services. And we believe the best way to do that is to give them a way to get through the spring through like a do-it-yourself seeding program like we have through the Bare Patch Pro, and then delay the actual aeration and slit seeding services into the fall when you are much less busy. So use these tips, guys, because seeding services doesn't always have to be a pain in the grass.